come on. Hey, feel the rhythm. It's getting from the deepest of your soul. Now, use your senses, and everything will be easier than before. Keep on moving, funk is coming. Blind yourself, big. You'll become the star in this die. Spread your wings, fly to me. Funk is coming.
So what do you want to talk about? So what's on the topic? Just like how we got to the like what's
Well-
the conversation going to be about?
Well, listen, I have some questions that I wrote down for you, and we can start from them, and then we'll see how the conversation flows. That's pretty much it. There is nothing behind it. I try to prepare a little bit for the person I'm speaking to. So yeah, so the first question I would love to ask you, Nate, is about your beginnings on G Plus, because we met while we were on G Plus.
Well, yeah. So my beginnings on YouTube, or like the beginnings of this channel, like my channel now.
I would say your beginnings on G Plus. It's where I first met you, where you first were engaged in the conversation and stuff like that. Because I think, we'll speak about it a little bit later, but your beginnings were a little bit different from what you're doing now. So I'm interested in when you get on the scene, like the cool kids say, you get on the scene, yeah.
Got it. All right. So, So when I started the YouTube life, I think it was like in 2014 or something like that. I remember making an account because I was watching Philip DeFranco back in the day. So I was watching Philip DeFranco and just some other YouTube stuff like that. So I got into the platform and I liked it. I thought it was cool. I didn't make videos or anything like that. I just kind of just watched arguments and things of that nature. But I was always curious about philosophy and stuff like that. It was one of those curiosities, but not something I was actually taking seriously as an academic or anything like that. So I started just searching around. And then I don't even know who the hell did I meet first in the community. I don't know if it was G-Man. I don't know who it was, but something led me to this community. What the hell? I don't know what led me to it.
Well,
was it the?
Might have been G-Man. G-Man was a big magnet at that time.
So. No, it wasn't G-Man. I remember watching some of the Atheist Experience stuff.
Oh, might be. Well, it cannot have been Matt because he's
no.
Never...
Well, no, it was first I saw. I remember now. I think this is how it happened, but I know I was looking for arguments. I was looking into religious dogma. I was looking for arguments for religion, arguments against religion, something still like that. And I remember I was saying, what are the good arguments for God?
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Cy 10, and he was debating. Like he was going around debating people like SSX, some guy FX Fox or something like that. Like it was like a whole bunch of these like little crazy, little nothing debates about presuppositionalists. But this was like way back in the day.
Yeah.
He was on the Bible thing Wingnut show every week.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was doing stuff like that. And I was looking for counter arguments for both sides. So then I was watching the Atheist Experience. I was watching both of these things together, like the Atheist Experience, and then I watched him. And then and that's kind of how I kind of got started. Now, how did I get to you guys? Oh, I know exactly how it went. So I was watching the Atheist Experience.
Yeah.
So when I started watching the Atheist Experience, no. At first I was watching Bible Thumping Wingnut.
Right.
Then I started watching the Atheist Experience because that led me to Atheist Experience. Then when I was watching the Atheist Experience, I said, well, what's counter arguments to Matt Dillahunty's argument?
Okay.
Because I like what he's saying, but let me look at counter arguments to his argument. That led me to True Empiricism.
Oh, bloody hell. Okay.
And True Empiricism's video was debunking Matt's video. And when I saw True Empiricism's video, I was like, this guy's making, his counterpoints don't make any sense. So then I said, well, let me go to his channel and start looking at some of his other stuff to see, maybe he's got something better. And then
Right.
then he has like some other videos up there, but then I was like, I don't understand this. True Empiricism led me to Alex Barton, because him and
Okay.
Alex Barton had some debate. And then from True Empiricism, then that's when I got to G-Man.
Yeah.
And then it was True Empiricism and G-Man and Alex Barton. They were arguing with each other. And from True Empiricism, that led me to Steve McCrae.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because him and Steve had beef.
Yeah.
And then Steve McCrae introduced me to JD Kane on Talking Shit Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
Because then Steve was having a hangout. I was in like one of these things. Steve McCrae introduced me to you guys, because
Yeah.
then I was in his chats and he was like, yo, why don't you come on? And then I went on Steve McCrae's show. It was the first time I was on. And then that's when I met Dragnet through Steve. I met everybody else through Steve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, that's one of the things, you never know who you can end with, following a rabbit trail. Because, right, I mean, you started from sight and then you went to True Empiricism, and then you end up with me, which I consider myself the pinnacle, So, yeah, you never fucking know, yeah? But, okay, that was interesting. So, another thing I want to ask you is, so you explained to me a little bit that you were interested in that kind of conversation. I'm shooting in the dark here. My feeling is that you were more interested in the conversation from a dialectic point of view, because I've never seen you, honestly, I mean, this is my impression, I've never seen you too much involved with the philosophical side of those things, and even in the general sense of the conversation. But I always saw you really attracted to the back and forth, which was in the conversation. Am I wrong in that? Is it too far fetched as an idea, or?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. The part of the conversation that I like is well-reasoned arguments.
Okay.
And I'm always searching for the best well-reasoned argument. So if it's and sometimes when I like to go into when I try to go into philosophical realms, what I do is I start from a position of ignorance. Right, I know nothing, and whose argument can I follow to lead me down, to the conclusion? Whose premises are correct? Can I follow this conclusion? What holes are there? So early on, I did a lot of William Lane Craig. And at the beginning, I noticed holes in his argument from the beginning, right? Here's the assumption, here's the assumption, here's the assumption. I used to write it down. And then for the other side, the person who's arguing against him, I would notice holes in their argument too and say, like, okay, this part of the argument, this part of the argument. And then I would kind of evaluate both sides based on, whose argument kind of led to the conclusion, And a lot of times against William Lane Craig, one side would be saying, I don't know, and William Lane Craig would say, I know. But the way he got to I know, it just didn't it wasn't logically, it just wasn't all there. It got to, I think the best that I ever said that William Lane Craig got to was the, I'm not sure, I believe it, but I'm not sure. It's like
Right.
that's the best he could give me,
Right.
versus just saying I'm not sure. So that's kind of the part of the argument that I've always been interested in, and I've always been trying to understand everything in context, because I always used to say, no matter if you believe or you don't believe, there's an argument, and I would, I remember saying this all the time. I always feel like I'm not trying to fool myself. I'm always trying to make sure I'm not fooling myself. So if I believe something, right? If I believe, like right now, I've always said I don't believe God exists, but I also don't know if I'm fooling myself or not. I could be fooling myself. He could exist. And I know this is an argument from Matt Populum, but it's hard for me to believe that 80% of the population all believe something's out there and they're all wrong. It's more likely that I may be the one that's wrong than I believe because I would use that, 87% of science is 87%. And I understand it's philosophical. You can't really prove it or not. But, even though the position that I hold is one of not believing or not accepting a proposition, I can never really close off the fact that proposition could be true, and based on the people who I think are rational, my mom, my wife, the majority of my family, You know, am I the one being irrational? So I always try to stand from that position. You know, trying to make sure I'm not fooling myself when I go
Okay,
into these.
so let me see if I can build a bridge in what you say, because I think I get the gist of what you say. One of the things that it always pissed, well, not pissed off, one of the things I always had conversation with people in arguments is that, okay, a good argument is a good argument. You can't deny that. And I'm saying that I'm trying to switch into something which is more into your ballpark. So a good argument is a good argument. There is no denying that. But what really makes the day is a convincing argument. And when you spoke about William Lane Craig, he makes good arguments, but the bullshit meter, goes, at least for me, it goes way over the scale. Meaning that there might be good arguments, but they're not really convincing arguments, at least for me. And again, at the end of the day, those are the one which counts. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I see. I think, um, like semantically, I kind of consider both of them the same, right? If it's a good, in this sense, for me, when I use the word a good argument in that sense, I was using the argument that it's convincing,
Okay.
where at the end of the day I can't say, well, here are the holes in the argument that's not lead me to be convinced. So I think you're right. Good. In the way you're describing it, I would actually hold that position.
Okay. No,
William
no, no.
Lane Craig made good, William Lane Craig makes good arguments, but his arguments haven't convinced me,
Right.
and I have specific reasons why they haven't convinced me. Just like when he says that God, when he makes his argument why God does not exist, right? He says he holds a position God does not exist, and he makes his arguments. There are holes in his argument that doesn't convince me of that either.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Okay. No, no. I understand what you say. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's good we clarified that. So the reason I asked you that is because I want to switch gear a little bit. We spoke about how you approach the G plus community and all that stuff, but then you started your own channel, the channel you're on, which I've got to say it's very successful. I think you're getting a good feedback from that, and it shows that you're having fun doing that. I think that's one of the best things. So mine is a little bit open-ended question. It's just a favor to you, but my question would be why you pick the topics that you talked about in your channel.
Um, well, at first it was just topics that interest me. Like just if you notice at the beginning, it was kind of just like, hey, this is interesting. This is interesting. And a lot of my friends were talking about the topics. Um, but then I was like, well, you know what? I have a law degree. Let me change my channel over to just law and see what people are covering legal topics. So I actually didn't start with any type of like I'm only going to talk about this. It was just kind of like, hey, I'm going to read this lawsuit. I'm going to read this lawsuit, and just kind of discover it. So I came up with the bright idea um, when I started this channel. It was in July. So kind of everything came together. So I was coming off a cruise ship, and I was like, I want to start the YouTube channel. And I was like, what I want to do is I want to cover live court cases, and I want to cover them from beginning to end. And I think that'll be fun, so people can at least see how a court case goes from beginning to end. That'd be awesome. But then I was like, but how can you do it? At that time they weren't monetizing trials, and what do you know? Non sequitur show hit.
Yeah.
So Steve was this, blah 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 blah. And I remember saying, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can just cover this case, from beginning to end. But then I was like, oh, but this guy just said he's going to sue him. He may not ever sue him. Who will ever know? Then Ruev got involved, and then he said he's going to sue him. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can actually cover this case from beginning to end.
Yes.
So I did that, and that was actually I learned a couple of things. I learned, well, this is how you read cases. This is what people like, that type of thing. And then I said so, but then I was like, oh, this doesn't work because this is kind of one-off. I'm trying to follow around, follow cases, and that, I was like, oh, it's kind of boring too because you have to get people who also like to hear every case that I'm reading out. So I'm like, I got to make this thing short. I can't be sitting here doing 2-hour live streams all the time. So I decided I said, well, listen, let me break down cases. And one of the first cases I broke down was the David Silverman versus
Yes.
Matt Dillahunty case.
Yeah.
So I did that case, and that was real successful. So I was like, "Oh, this is cool. I can break down interesting cases and interesting legal topics because there's some
Mm-hmm.
legal topics came off that I broke down." So I was like, "Okay, so this seems to be good." So then I started saying, "Well, my channel was only going to do police shootings." So,
Right.
so because I was like, I had this law enforcement experience. I'm a former DA, so I'm going to just focus on police shootings. But back then, you could monetize police shootings. So I started doing police shooting videos, and then the Breonna Taylor video hit. When that just blew up, it just it exploded. So after I did that video, I just continued to do police shooting videos, which was great. But then YouTube said, "Well, we're going to demonetize police shooting videos. You're not going to be able to make money off of those videos anymore because of the law enforcement aspect of it." So I'm like, "Shit, what can I now cover? Because now I have this audience that likes police shooting videos, but now I can't do police shooting videos. So what am I
Yeah.
going to do?" So then it was just kind of like, well, let me just start covering cases that I just like. I just think it's interesting, right? And one of the early cases was the U.S. soccer case. And then I was like, all right, so I was like, let me just cover this case, and I just covered it just like, just like whatever. I just was like, here it was. But then I noticed that everybody who loved the Breonna Taylor case, because I had done U.S. soccer first, and then I had done the Breonna Taylor case, and then Breonna Taylor got like 400,000 views, but then the U.S. soccer video got 100,000 views. So I was like, oh shit, people like this things. They going from one case to this case. So a lot of the police shooting people liked the
Right.
soccer video. So then I said, you know what? I'm just going to just focus in on that. I mean, doing videos like that. So I did a soccer video. I did a couple more police shooting videos, and then just start moving into just regular, like just regular videos.
Uh,
And so that's where I was at. Mhm.
This is really interesting to me because at the beginning you started that was really smart, and I'll get to the question in a while, but just bear with me. It to me it was really interesting because basically you started talking about the things that and it's your profession, and and I mean, you started from a case, and then you went from the other one to the other one. Now, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here, and I would say
Mhm.
that I mean, the timing was actually super perfect and kind of a little bit, well, I would say suspicious, because you started talking about legal cases when the non sequitur show started, and then David Silverman followed suit. So in my mind, you were smart, really smart in trying to catch the people that you knew, from the environment that you were in, and moving them to an area that you were more comfortable, and then from that, talking about from case to case. Now, again, I would say, a devil's advocate, some people might say, oh yeah, you exploited those ones, and then you jumped, from case to case. I would contend that that's the case. I think you were really, really, really clever in starting from that, because actually, I mean, man, I mean, that was what was happening at the time, and it would be stupid to not to cover that. But you were smart enough to follow suit, in other topic cases, as you explained. Do you agree with my recollection, and how much was the timing of the non sequitur show? Did it
Hello.
coincide with the explosion of your channel and stuff like that?
Oh no no! I wish the I think the non sequitur show actually kind of hurt my channel a little bit, but but the experience was good. All right, so let me explain. So covering the Steve case, did it get me from? I think it got me maybe to like 1,200 or matter of fact, got me less than 1,000 subs. I wasn't even at 1,000 subs when when I was covering the sequitur show. Let me see. I made it to 1,000. I might have just made it over 1,000. When I started, I had 500 or something subscribers, and
Okay.
I remember it took me about 6 months to get to even 1,000. So I wasn't even at 1,000. So I wasn't even monetized. So the non sequitur show, that coverage, it was it was okay, but it didn't really that that show or that coverage got it did get me. Let me see. It did give me something to do. At that time I was working too, so it was actually good to just read the cases. And honestly, it was a good thing for me. The non sequitur show was a good thing for me for two reasons. It did present me to one audience, but these were all people who already knew. These
Mm-hmm.
weren't people who I didn't. These weren't people who I didn't know. These were people who already knew. Um, but what else did it do? All right. So it helped me really hone my craft. You know what I mean? In
Yes.
terms of reading cases, being able to present them on screen, understanding what people liked about me reading the cases, what they didn't like about me reading the cases, that type of thing. I actually learned from the audience a lot. I learned, what works and what doesn't, and kind of what cases work and what doesn't. And for that audience, I think every YouTube creator,
Mm-hmm.
you have to evolve for the audience. You have to evolve for the audience,
Right.
and you want to always present a better product for that audience. So I have an audience, and I'm saying, okay, so they like the way I cover this legal topic. So now, what about covering legal topics that I like, that I know more? And that's kind of how what started that whole trend of now I'm covering more topics that are law based. So I think David Silverman worked really good for me, because that was an interesting case that got a lot more eyes on me. Okay, hey, we like this type of thing. We like this coverage, and then here's some other legal cases. So as I started covering more and more legal cases and the police shooting cases, that really blew me up. But the case that really, really got me going, was Breonna Taylor. After I did that case, if you look at my trends, right? So I was just kind of mid level. Breonna Taylor, I got like 50,000 subs or 40,000 subs in 2 days. A gentleman named Brendan Tatum, he shared the video for Breonna Taylor, and he shared it. Then somebody else shared it, and then it just exploded. And overnight, I had 40,000 subs, and they liked police shooting videos. So
That.
you know what I did? I gave them more police shooting videos because I
Right.
thought, now that
Yeah.
I have, this is this audience, going from, I think I went from like 2 or 3,000 subs to 50,000 subs. But I knew with that, and it was a unique position where I knew what those subs liked. Like I knew, everybody liked police shooting videos, and everybody liked the way I did them. So if I can give them that, then I could probably even grow this audience and satisfy the needs. So
That
it
is
was it
really.
was it kind of worked in a couple of different
That, I
ways.
mean, that is interesting. The fact that I made that question, because that will put to sleep, some, the rumors that there is somebody which is making them bidding and destroying channels. And I mean, again, we didn't spoke before, so that my question was completely out of the blue. But yeah, but it's really interesting. I wasn't aware of of the ups and downs of of your channel. So I guess yeah, I think that was really interesting. So there is another question I want to ask to you, and
Yeah.
that's because I spoke recently with Bob Graves from the NCG, and he raised the subject that to be honest, I've heard about it, but I wasn't really fully aware because I mean I live in Europe, so I mean what the fuck do I care? Uh, so the thing I would love to talk to you is critical race theory, and
Okay.
so what I was really interested in is what is your take on it, especially on the part of being structural in the U.S. law system, as it is my understanding that this is one of the main things about critical race theory. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know shit about it. So,
Well, the weird part about it is I honestly don't know shit about it too because it's
okay,
really not interesting to me. But from what I'm hearing, it's the new boogeyman, right? And I said this to for a friend of mine. This was the Renaissance man. He actually blew up on this, but I remember asking him, hey, what the hell is CRT? What the hell is critical race theory? Now, I've heard the most I've heard is that this was some college academic thought that was going around being taught in law schools. When I was in law school, I didn't hear about it, and it's not even taught in elementary or junior high schools or whatever. It's really a professional academic endeavor. So from what I'm understanding, and again, I could be totally wrong. From what I'm understanding, critical race theory is just saying that there's an involvement between race and culture and the law and so forth and so forth. Now, we had classes when I was in law school that was race and law, where we went over cases where race was the issue, Plessy v. Ferguson, critical Supreme Court cases here that involved race and that how that doctrine of racial bias and what's it called the what's it called strict scrutiny based on race, how that
Mm-hmm.
doctrine kind of evolved in the Supreme Court. So you know I am unfamiliar with critical race theory. I feel that maybe I should look more into it, but it's not from what I'm hearing. I think some people are just making a big deal out of nothing, making it seem like somebody's taking over critical race theory. You know, most of the people who I ask, as soon as they tell me bad things about critical race theory, most of the time they don't know what it is. So
No, I
it is
mean
what it is.
the reason I asked you is because recently I listened to a podcast from Jon Stewart, and he was talking with a guy that I mean is a lawyer, is a black guy, and but granted I think he works in Georgia or something like that,
Hmm.
and. And also, I think last Sunday, John Oliver made a piece on his show on HBO about critical. So,
I'll check it out.
yeah, and some of them, again, my understanding was that it was something which started, well, I would say in law school, but one of the main cores is the fact that it's embedded in the U.S. law system. So the fact that because you mostly work on the East Coast, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
and even if you are a black guy, the fact that you tell me you are not so much uh, exposed to that. Yeah, I mean, it makes me think that it is probably something that it might be in the U.S. Society, but it's really spotty and not so much widespread as it seems to be.
Yeah, I think it's one of those boogeyman things where the right and the left do this. The right does this, and they'll make a boogeyman. That's critical race theory, and they run around and say, critical race theory. They're teaching it, they're teaching it, they're teaching it. And they're like, oh, nobody's teaching critical race theory. And if they are, I don't. I think it just has to be more explained what it is. I understand two things. I understand teaching history and understanding the plight of the people. Oh, hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure my daughter's screaming.
As a family man, I totally understand the struggle of dealing with small kids, and yeah, so
Yeah, hello. Sorry about that. My
yeah, no, no.
daughter's.
I was just saying, as a family man, I totally understand the struggle with small kids. So yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah. No. So but again, I think it's just more of a boogeyman, and I think sometimes those on the right are just making a big deal out of nothing. So, but again, to each his own. I've here, I've not heard of it. It's no, I don't think it's being taught in our school. So,
So
I don't know.
I've got another question, and you forgive
Hmm.
me if I'm exploiting your expertise in that field, but there's some things that I really want to know. So
Okay.
there's one thing you might not know, and is the fact that my father-in-law is a lawyer, and my sister, she has two sisters which are lawyers, and the other one which is not a lawyer, she married a lawyer. So I think there is something wrong in my wife's family, but I mean, so one of the things that I try to read and I try to understand, and you might help me in that. Uh, the main differences and what is your take on the difference between common law, which is the one that you have in the U.S., versus civil law, which is the one coming from the Romans, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, well, you're surely aware of the differences, but I would love for you to explain a little bit what the difference really are, and what are the pros and cons of the two systems according to you, of course.
Oh my God, the differences between common law and civil law.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't even be able. I have to look it up because I definitely understand the common law system. But that
Right.
system of judicial, just based on, um, well, you have judge written law, where older precedent follows new. The judge,
Right.
it kind of builds upon itself. I think isn't civil law, but I don't think you guys have any precedent, right, for civil law. I have to look it up.
Well,
You guys don't take the press, because I know we do that here in Louisiana. They have that civil system, but I'm unfamiliar. I am unfamiliar with it. Last time I heard about that was last time I looked into it.
so
They do teach you the difference, but I do not know it.
But well, basically, the precedent is something which is in place in civil law, but mostly it's interpretation of an existing law. So you have a judiciary, you have a system like the Senate and the House of Commons, what we call the House of Commons, which makes law, and every so often there is a difference in interpretation. So there are three levels of judiciary system, and the biggest one is like the Constitutional Court, which issues, okay, this is the interpretation of the law, because the law might be written like shit, and this is how you have to interpret that. But my understanding with common law is that basically the judges make the law, right, through their judgments. And
Yes, we call that judge-made law.
right. So how? To me, it seems, and I'm coming from the other system. To me, it looks like like crazy, because you got to follow through. Every judge which makes a decision on a law, that becomes law. And how the fuck do you manage to do that?
All right, so I think I understand the differences. You're saying in civil law, you guys have a separate body, the House of Commons, writes the law, and then the judiciary interprets just that law.
Yes.
Here, our judges have the authority to actually make law from the bench. In other words, new law, and that's known as common law. All right. Now, just to be clear, the U.S. kind of has both systems. We do have a legislature that passes laws, right?
Right.
The civil code. Well, I can call it the civil code. But anyway, those laws that are passed are interpreted by judges the same way. But we do have we do have a body of law outside of that, which is known as which is case law, which is what you're talking about, common law, and that law, and that body of law is like where our contract law lives, So it's based on judges interpreting situations and then determining what the law is in this situation. So so like, for instance, where criminal law is all through the process of the legislature who's elected, our House of Commons, they make the law and the judge interprets what happens. Then you have the Supreme Court that says, if it's followed, it's interpreted at the end for constitutionality or whatever. But then you have this separate body of law that is with our contracts law. For instance, our law of contracts is all judge interpreted, judge made law. Now, sometimes if the legislature, which happens all the time, they may write a law about contract law. So they may say, okay, so you know what, we're gonna take bargain theory and we're going to make it, and we're gonna codify it. If they do that, what they write trumps with the judge's law. So the judge's law is kind of like the lowest tier, and if the legislature can pass a law that knocks that judge's law out. But generally, when we're talking about contract law, we're talking about judge-made law, and we're talking about penal law, we're talking about the legislative-made law. But so I now understand what you're talking about, the differences between common and civil law.
Right. Okay, so man, listen, we are almost half an hour in. So usually, I gotta explain a little bit. Usually, when I make this thing, I ask people to send me 3 questions that they want me to ask them. Our whole thing was a little bit, I would say, rushed up, but it just we say, okay, let's do it. Let's. So I haven't got your 3 questions. So unfortunately, you will have to subject yourself to 3 emergency questions that I'm taking from a book. So brace yourself,
Cool. Oh, cool.
because
Cool. I'm ready.
some of them you might not like it. Okay,
Okay.
so the first one, if you could put a custard pie in the face of anyone in the world with no returns, who would you custard pie?
If I could put a custard pie in anybody in the world, who would I put it? Who would I custard pie?
Yeah.
Oof. I don't know. I'm thinking that's tough. There are some people, but they're asking, I don't know if they'd be worth it. I don't know. I don't know if,
No returns. So
yeah, so I get so it's free. I can just
yeah.
oof. Think. You know what? My brother.
Your brother. Okay, it's gonna be
Yeah.
happy to hear that.
I would
Okay.
do I would do it with my brother.
Is there any
But he
particular
would
reasons why you want to do that? Have you been custard pied by your brother
custard
previously?
pie? A custard pie? Well, no. Well, two things. Because I know he'll take it. I know he'll know it's a joke. And the second thing is that I know if he had the chance, he'll probably do it to me too. So,
Okay. So, okay, my second question would be, what is your greatest weakness?
greatest weakness?
Yeah.
Um, oof. Sometimes I take too much on, and sometimes like personally, sometimes I just take too much on, and then always I'm trying to catch up to what I need to be, and it's difficult because you try to I'm trying to you're trying to build something. Like I'm trying to build this YouTube channel and this business, and unfortunately sometimes it's my organizational skills, not really organizational of what I have to do, but organizations on what to do in that process. Like sometimes I'll be sitting here and I'll be like, I know there's things that I have to do. Now, don't get me wrong, I organize, I have calendars, and I have everything, but something that I feel like I always feel like I can be doing more, and I think that's because sometimes I feel like I take on so much stuff that that I forget certain things, or I'll triage it till later, and that's when things get messed up. So on one end, I feel like I don't have enough time for everything, but then on the other end, I don't feel like I have enough time. I have too much time. So I don't know. It's a weird little quirk of mine, but maybe I got to take a class on being able to organize myself and being able to fix to manage tasks better. You know what I mean? So I don't know. My greatest weakness, maybe time management. That's what I'm actually probably trying to say. Well, it's time management. My greatest weakness is time management. I don't manage my time well.
Well, I mean, I guess we should talk with your wife about that. So, but yeah, we'll leave it at another time.
Oh, yeah. No. She definitely knows. She definitely knows.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the third final emergency question. What is the worst rumor you've heard about yourself?
The worst rumor I've heard about myself.
Yeah.
Let me see. I've heard a couple of bad rumors. The worst rumor I've heard about myself was that. I'm thinking. Because now that there's so many damn rumors.
Oh, there can be more than one. I mean, this is the
Oh,
juicy
well,
part.
I
So,
had one I had was when I that I wasn't a lawyer. That was a bad rumor, but that was easy to overcome.
yeah.
The worst, actually the worst rumor was I'm thinking. I don't know. Because a lot of them is just from Steve and their camp. They throw out rumors all the time. That's really the worst rumors I get.
Really,
About
the worst rumor you've ever heard is that the fact that you're not a lawyer? Really?
no.
Okay.
I'm saying they all come from Steve's camps. Like for instance, the one I committed fraud against the court. That's a pretty bad rumor, right? So I'm just that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out which one would be the worst, but that one is pretty bad. Yeah, I think that one's pretty bad. The one that The one G-Man said it. The one G-Man had going around that I cheated on my wife. That was another bad one.
Yeah.
But the one that I committed fraud in the court. Some other lawyers asked me about it, like, hey, what's this guy talking about? "Gee," and then I told him, like, yo, read this thing that he posted. He's like, yeah, that's not committing fraud in the court. What you talking? I'm like, yeah, he's just saying stuff like that. So
What I
that
mean,
that I think is the worst.
what
Mhm.
was it all about? I mean, you committed fraud. I mean, how did you commit fraud?
Yeah, so
What
I
was the?
I I'm thinking this is what he's trying to say. So when the non-sex things first started, um, Kyle, they had stopped doing it. We were doing the Magic Sandwich Show, so I had mentioned to Drag. Well, Carl did so much great artwork for the non-sex show, and since they weren't doing it anymore, I was like, hey, listen, we were thinking about bringing on. Looking for the. We wanted to see if you wanted to do some of the artwork for the non-sex show. We were like, what we have is good, but what you did for the non-sex show, even just give us some tips, or you can help us do it. So we were just like, just for design or whatever. And then we explained to him that he couldn't be on the front face or anything, but we just wanted to see if he can help us just organize stuff like he did with the non-sex show, and we could take it from there. Um, so so he was like, sure, I'll think about it. Like the idea. I think he was gonna make some overlays and stuff. And he actually did make some overlays and some thumbnails for me. So he was like, let me look at the Magic Summer show and see. So then I think I had asked him how the non-stick case was going. I was like, oh, so how's it going with Steve? I know you guys are being sued. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he knew or he didn't know. I don't know. I know it was like some craziness that went on. It was like, I don't know. This is this. I was like, you don't know you're being sued. I was like, oh, blah blah blah. So then I remember I sent him a video. Like, here's this video. How to deal with default judgments. A YouTube video. So I sent him a YouTube video, and I think Steve is saying, because I sent him that YouTube video on how to deal with default judgments. I think it said three things. It said the way you deal with default judgments, you pay it off, you go on a court and just say, hey, it's over and settle with the other side. And I think one of them was like, you'd have to say the process was flawed in some way. And a guy mentions, I think, service of process. So he's saying that was frauding the court because Kyle did that to fraud the court. I'm like, hold on. I sent him a YouTube video on how to handle default judgments generally.
Yeah.
So that's what he's saying. So, and then Kyle takes that and then goes and says he was that he did the service thing, that he was improperly served. And I'm like, that's not. So on all the correspondence between me and Kyle, you can see I always said, go see an attorney. Go see an attorney. You need to see an attorney in your area. Unfortunately, I can't help you. But but then Steve found out that, hey, this is defamatory. You got to be careful. So now instead of saying that I did defraud the court, he's saying, he believes I may have defrauded the court. So
Okay, so I think we are done with the time. I mean, one little small question from me. Do you think there
uh-huh.
is ever going to be the chance that you're going to sue somebody because he said something on the internet? Are you seeing that in
Who,
your
me?
future?
Me?
Yeah.
I possibly can. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I, you know why? Let's say he does say something crazy. Let's say Steve Cheshire, somebody does say something crazy,
Or
and I know
anybody,
I can
because
win.
we're talking hypothetical here. Yeah.
No, no, yeah, yeah. I'm talking hypothetically. Let's say if
Yes.
Steve Cheshire, somebody says something so crazy that I think I can win, or that I'm pretty confident I can win. Yeah, I'll sue because I know I can win.
There you go.
Right? If he says something that's crazy enough that I know I can win, I'll sue. But I'm not going to sue if it's the chances got to be like a 90% chance I know I can win.
And
If it's
this
not that, then
and
I
this
can't
is
win. Huh?
this is spoken like a true lawyer from the country where there is a. I mean, how many fucking lawyers have got in the U.S., man? I mean, there's. I mean, it seems to me you can't dig a hole without finding a lawyer in the U.S.
Well, you have I know you have like 30,000 graduate every year from law school. So
Yeah.
every year you got a whole bunch coming in. So it's there's a lot, but unfortunately it's weird because even though there's a lot, it doesn't seem like there's enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the old system. One difference is I think we talked about it. One main difference, between at least in Italy and in the US, if I sue somebody and I win, like 90 times out of 100, the part which loses pays not only his lawyer but also the other people lawyer. So that is like a deterrent for frivolous lawsuit, because I mean, if I lose, not only I'm gonna pay my lawyer but even the other guys. So
Loser pays.
yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
and that I think, I mean, it's not that stupid. What don't you think? I mean, it's kind of a good thing, because of the fact that the lawyers, they tend not to take, well, first of all, they try to arrange things out of the court way faster. And also, it's really discouraged, to go. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, it's not worth it. Even if you're gonna win, it's gonna take so much time that even your lawyer is gonna see the money when the trial is over. So sometimes they also discourage you, even if you're going to win. Yeah. So.
Well, that's unfortunate. That's a chilling effect. But I know here, it's everybody pays their own, unless it's you can prove malice intent and so forth and so forth. So, like, for instance, the recent Cardi B case, that's what that happened, where she was able to prove that the person acted with malice, and then as punitive damages, you have to pay the other side's attorney fees, which is big time money a lot of times.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, man, listen, thank you very much. I'll leave it to your family. Thank you for your time. I know that you were just, got back from whatever the fuck you were, and you got back to your family. So, yeah, so thank you very much for your time. And I hope you had as much fun as I had, because I really had a lot of fun.
Right, man, thanks for chatting to me. And anytime, just let me know.
Okay, cheers, man. Bye-bye.
I'm around, brother.
If I didn't care more than words can say, if I didn't care, would I feel this way?